first turn on is a simple Lloyd Kaufman trauma film about a bunch of kids who reluctantly go to summer camp. The camp is a true trauma summer camp where the weirdest stuff happens. No one wants to be there. The camp leader only wants money and the other leaders are only there to hump each other, you know. Like real summer camp but with more fun. During an excursion into a forest, a group of teens and a leader go missing and trapped in a cave. They commence to talk about their first times doing the deed. Cue a bunch of ridiculous stories where the boy and girl teens talk about their first time. In true trauma style, all the sexy stuff is pretty unsexy. There's icky stuff though that's pretty tame in this flick. Well, except for the scenes with the pimple-covered nerd who eats. It almost makes me vomit thinking of it. Out of all the summer camp movies I have seen in the past, this is one of the weaker ones, but it's still better than the Fear Street 1979 one. This movie is best compared with Wet Hot American Summer, but made by low-budget Trauma Studios. Personally, I'd advise you to watch Wet Hot American Summer, both the series as well as the movie, instead of this flick, but that would make me feel bad, as I do think that this film should be seen, purely because it's a trauma. Drop that. The Gardener is another action film with Charles Bronson impersonator Robert Bronzy. In this film he plays a gentle gardener in the ugly home of a wealthy family who clearly have no sense of interior decorating and style. When a bunch of robbers, who are also martial arts mercenaries, decide to rob the place. Kinda sucks for them and their incompetence that the family is still the cause they will have to witness the awful acting these four people do. Luckily our hero the gardener is there, and as you might have suspected, he's more than just a gardener. The way he deals with the punks is enjoyable, but not as enjoyable as it should be. He might be a Rambo going on a rampage, but he's a far cry from the brutal coolness you got from those films. He isn't a John Wick either, who ends groups of assailants in a stylish and choreographed way. No, he's more like Steven Seagal with Brosnan's face and charm. So still better, but not far from it. The Gardener starts out promising, but it leaves you wanting. I have no objections about the acting from Bronzy, but everyone else is just awful. They don't have a lot to work with thanks to the script, but I think even Darman videos are better acted than this. Yes, I watch Darman sometimes, albeit forcibly. Anywho, The Gardener is a movie that could and should have been a lot better. Drop that. Believe all women, they say. Well, in this movie you actually have to believe her, and it's infuriating that they didn't. Plus, this is based on a real story. A young girl, Lisa McVey, who leads a troubled life with her scum of a grandmother after being told to fuck off by her scum of a mother, ISS kidnapped by someone after her evening shift. She ends up being blindfolded and locked up multiple times over the course of days. With her home experiences behind her, she concocts a plan to escape, and she does. What happens then is the disbelief of cops and her scum family about what happened with her, until, that is, one cop believes her and links the case to a serial killer. Lisa McVey is an interesting movie that hits slightly harder because it's based on a real-life event. Lisa's skills and actions during her captivity were so impressive that she eventually landed a job in law enforcement and is still, to this day, a sheriff in a local police force. The Abduction of Lisa McVey is a typical drama film. It's competently done and shows you both the dark side of humanity as well as all the good that can come from it. It's inspiring and both dramatic that a person has gone through this, and I'm just glad this ended well. There are plenty where it doesn't. Oh, and some people shouldn't be parents. Simple as that. Check that. In The Friends of Eddie Coyle we follow Eddie Coyle, a career criminal and gun runner played by Robert Mitchum, who is facing more days in jail than he wants to go there at his old retirement age. He is still involved with delivering weapons to a gang of bank robbers, but as things get more and more violent he is looking for a way out. That way? Strike a deal with law enforcement and get out. It's that or jail. This is a nice 70s crime caper story with a great Robert Mitchum who carries the film from start till finish. The story gives a vivid look of the Irish mob in Boston and how betrayal and danger are never far away. By the end of the movie you'll realize it now cause I said it, that the title of the film is quite ironic. even sarcastic. It's the cold, harsh reality of a life of crime and people in general. There are no real winners, there's just survival, and at the end of everything you go through life alone. Check that. Someone's Watching Me is a TV movie by the legend John Carpenter about an attractive and free-spirited woman who starts to live in a very nice apartment complex in some big city. When she suddenly gets frequent calls by some weird stranger, she begins to get worried. Things escalate even more when she suddenly receives weird gifts from some organization that offers her an all-expense-paid vacation. Someone's Watching Me is a very competent and compelling thriller that keeps you intrigued despite the basic plot. The woman in question, played by beautiful Lauren Hutton, is no pushover, but she's dealing with an unknown force that can get to her at any point in time, and he, or she, does. There are some interesting scenes that show you what the stalker is capable of, so pay good attention as to what is happening in the background. I really enjoyed Someone's Watching Me. It felt almost like a Hitchcock movie in ways, well shot, well acted and tense at the right moments. I get why this is a TV movie, but its quality surpasses the mere TV film by miles. Worth the watch for the lovers of a good thriller. Check that. All Quiet on the Western Front is the 1930s and original version of the World War I movie that was later remade in the 70s with Ernest Borgnine and Richard Thomas. A review that I have made in this show a long time ago. If you want to see it, be sure to visit yitsalemons.com to find it in the complete listing of all reviewed movies and series. Also like and subscribe y'all. Anyways, All Quiet on the Western Front is a groundbreaking and excellent war or anti-war movie that, despite being made in 1930, is a very modern film. We follow a couple of teenagers who, after being riled up by their patriotic teacher, are dropped in the middle of a bunch of vet soldiers and immediately have to deal with trench warfare and the horrors behind it all. From cold to disease and hunger, it's all portrayed in a way that this movie, even though it's in black and white, almost feels more real than the first time we saw Allied soldiers run up on Omaha Beach in Saving Private Ryan. The war scenes might not be super graphic, but I was amazed at how well made it was. I mean, this is a movie from, again, 1930, a full decade before WW2 even started, and even at the start of the rise of Hitler, who, by the way, banned this movie for being unpatriotic and unhuman, as it also showed certain soldiers as being less than heroic and patriotic. All Quiet on the Western Front is a classic of cinema everyone has to see. The remake follows almost the same beats, but as with most films, the original is always the better one. Any film fan, war movie fan must see this movie. Hell, everyone must see this movie. Smash that. KGF Chapter 2 is the sequel to the first KGF movie, where a buff guy nicknamed Rocky kicked ass and took names in slow motion and with a suave even the coolest motherfucker you can think of can't match. Chapter 2 continues from where we left off in the first movie. Rocky just defeated a major foe at the mines he infiltrated, and he is now, effectively, the ruler of said mine. Having the respect and worship of the people, the mine quickly grows. Everyone profits and Rocky becomes the most powerful criminal in India, which, to no surprise, as the Indian government and other criminal overlords across the land. The new Indian Prime Minister vows to kill Rocky and bring down his empire. Rocky not only has to deal with the force of the Indian government, but also with enemies and allies coming for him. And a blast for the past. Much like the previous movie, this film is told through stories. The same reporter from the first film returns, though we do have a different storyteller. For the rest, it's pretty much the same movie, just more of it. There's the same amount of action, a slightly reduced rate of slow motion walks, new epic songs making you cheer, and, unfortunately, slightly less humor and jokes. At 2 hours 30, I wouldn't recommend doing a back-to-back, but it's perfectly possible to go from one movie into the other as one massive 6-hour marathon. Just be prepared to add another 2 to 3 hours to that, since the third one is in development. Yes, the second one ends on a cliffhanger too, so they will have to check that. Everything Everywhere, All at Once is the newest A24 movie. A24, as you might know, is my favorite production company who churns out great movie after great movie. And Everything Everywhere, All at Once is yet another good movie to put on their ever-expanding list. To explain this film is difficult. I can tell you what it's about, but you'll have to discover most of it for yourself. We start with Michelle Yeoh's character, who owns a quaint but struggling laundromat with her husband and rebellious teenager turned lesbian. When visiting the Internal Revenue Service where they are being audited, she is dragged into an interdimensional battle for the survival of the multiverse. Multiverse, you say? Isn't that Marvel? Well, it is. And it isn't. This isn't Marvel, and I'm glad it isn't, because we would never have seen the wonders that are depicted in this film in even the craziest Marvel film. Move aside Doctor Strange. You have found your match in aging Michelle Yeoh, who clumsily gets dropped into a surreal bunch of worlds only to erupt the hero of the film. Away too with PG ratings, as girls are fighting with massive dildos and a butt plug is used as a trigger to travel between dimensions. There's more crazy stuff going on in this film, and if you wonder what Ratatouille has to do with anything, you won't be disappointed either. The film isn't without its flaws, however. Most of the beginning of the movie, and more so the acting, is annoying. Yeoh's character is just plain annoying. Screeching and screaming plenty of times had me want to kick her in the face multiple times. Same for her daughter. This is a fairly female-centric film, but you'll be glad to hear that the men in it at least are treated with respect and do not get the brunt of abuse or jokes thrown at them like so many other movies. Our protagonists are clumsy and irritating, mediocre people who throughout the film will discover themselves and their place in the world. Existentialism is what it is called. What is real when everything is possible? What is real when nothing is possible? What if we were rocks? Or fish, or worse? What is the point? The point of this movie? It's fun. It's funny. It's better than the Disney crap they attempt to shove in our throats. It's surreal, colorful, action-packed, funny, thoughtful, imaginative, creative, adult, and so much more. It's everything, everywhere, all at once. Check that. Mud God is a stop-motion animation film by Phil Tippett that has been in the works for, wait for it, 30 years. Tippett started working on it in the late 80s after working on RoboCop 2 and has finally, thanks to Kickstarter backers, finished it. Now, I always find it a bit weird to claim something is worked on for years or decades, making people think that they spend hour after hour working on it continuously, while in reality they probably had months off doing nothing. Regardless though, it sure looks like something that was worked on for a very long time because it looks amazing. The stop motion at times is so fluent you can hardly see that it is a stop motion movie. There are some real life recordings in there, but a large percentage of this film is true stop motion, and it looks amazing. I can't say much about the plot cause it's one of those movies that you'll have to see multiple times and experience for yourself what it is truly about, filled with symbolism, references and winks and nods. It's the story of a suited being, with a gas mask, who is dropped into a weird nightmarish dream world with strange monsters and beings, and then the plot loses me and it turns into a journey into some type of dystopian hell, a purgatory, a dream. I do not know. There's no dialogue except for a narration into text at the beginning, and most of the sounds used in the film are wordless, going from animal sounds to the sound a baby makes and beyond. The movie is a visual delight, though I would not recommend seeing it while under the influence of drugs. Or maybe you should, cause it might make more sense plot-wise. As far as I can tell, it's a bunch of scenes that are stitched together seamlessly, and this seems to be confirmed by a note on the IMDb page where it states that students helped him create scenes. And I quote, "Lots of work on the film was done on Saturdays by students who wanted to get some filmmaking experience. The scene with the mountain of dead soldiers was done by melting thousands of little army men together on wire. And it took 6 people 3 years to complete the scene." 6 people, 3 years. I'm currently working in the 8th year of a project, though I haven't worked on it for the past 2 years since I'm working on other projects. Yeah, no, I can say that I worked a decade on it though, right? The slight jab aside to this method of communicating, Mad God is a masterpiece and a work of love. I have done stop motion in the past, and this is a truly magnificent piece of work reminiscent of Lynch's Eraserhead and Dante's Inferno. It's an experience that will have you think about what it all means for at least a couple of minutes. Maybe in 30 years you'll find out. Smash that. Stone Cold was a movie I decided to watch after seeing Red Letter Media talk about it. Of course the whole movie was spoiled due to this, but I'm happy to say that I was still very much amused to see it for myself. Stone Cold is the story of Joe Huff, played by Brian Bosworth, who is asked to infiltrate a violent motorcycle gang that are planning to assassinate the district attorney and free their imprisoned brother. This is an early 90s action movie that still has a lot of 80s running through its blood. There's a mullet, there's one-liners, there's over-the-top violence, there's big lush boobies flopping out just 'cause we can. Certain scenes are shot in such a delightful way that it becomes almost comedic, but you can tell that it's all done with a sincere purpose. Lance Henriksen plays a great motorcycle gang leader who gets more insane as the movie progresses. It's cool, it's funky, and it kicks ass. It knows what it is, and it's exactly what it should be. It's great fun and a better movie than you would expect. This movie flopped big time at the box office and gets a bad rep from reviewers on reputable sites such as Google Reviews, Rotten Tomatoes, and other totally not shilled sites. Poppycock, I say, however. Poppycock to it all. Highbrow moviegoers might snuff at the film, but this is a great action flick with a decent cast. I mean, it has Lance Henriksen, and an interesting enough a plot. It's entertainment, and that's all we want sometimes, goddamn it. Smash that.